All right, let's jump right in. The UK has made this huge, legally binding promise to hit net zero emissions by 2050. I mean, that's a goal that's reshaping everything policy, business, you name it. But, and this is the big but, actually getting there means we have to face a challenge that's almost completely hidden from view. So at first glance, things look pretty good, actually. If you just look at the UK's official emissions, the stuff that's actually produced inside the country, they've dropped by a lot since 1990. We're talking a really significant fall, and that's fantastic news, right? It's real progress. But, and you knew there was a but coming. Here's the catch. The experts are basically saying the momentum is stalling. You see, a lot of that amazing progress we just saw, that was the low-hanging fruit. Stuff like cleaning up the power grid. That was the easy part. What's left to do is, well, it's a whole lot harder. So that really begs the question, doesn't it? Are those official numbers, the ones we see in the headlines, telling us the whole story? Or is there a massive piece of the puzzle that's just missing? And this is where we get to the real heart of the problem. Because those official numbers, they're missing a giant part of the picture. They don't account for the emissions tied to everything the UK consumes, only what it produces. Okay, so let's put a name to this. We're talking about Scope 3 emissions. So what is that? Well, it's not the smoke coming out of a factory's chimney. No, it's all the indirect stuff. It's the carbon footprint of the raw materials, the shipping to get them there, and even what happens when you, the customer, use the final product. It is literally the entire hidden life cycle. And you really can't overstate how huge this is. For a typical company, it's direct emissions, what we call Scope 1 and 2. That's just the tiny, tiny tip of the iceberg. The rest of it, we're talking like 85% or even more, is all Scope 3. It's totally buried in their supply chain. It is the absolute elephant in the room. So where is all this Scope 3 stuff hiding? Well, it's everywhere. Think about a big retailer. It's in every single product they buy to stock their shelves. Or in construction, it's baked into the steel and cement. It's the fuel burned by the ships and trucks that move everything around. For a car company, believe it or not, it's even the emissions from us driving their cars off the lot. It's just everywhere. And this is why this is such a massive deal. It's really an issue of integrity, right? Because if a company or a whole country only counts its direct emissions, it's not really solving the problem. It could just be outsourcing its pollution to somewhere else. Tackling Scope 3, that's about taking real responsibility for your entire carbon footprint. Okay, so if Scope 3 is this important, you're probably wondering, why isn't everyone all over this? Well, the simple answer is, it's incredibly, incredibly difficult. Let's break down the 3 biggest hurdles. First up, just measuring it. I mean, how on earth do you get reliable data from thousands of different suppliers all over the world who might not even want to share it? Then there's attribution. If one factory in China makes a tiny part for 10 different products, whose emissions are those? How do you slice up that pie? And finally, the sheer cost and manpower. For small and medium-sized businesses, just trying to figure this all out can be a completely overwhelming burden. So yeah, the challenges are huge, no doubt about it, but they're not impossible to overcome. And what we're seeing now is a really important shift, away from just talking about the problem and towards creating an actual blueprint for action. We're moving from disclosure to deliver. So what does that action actually look like for a company that's serious about this? Well, for starters, they can actively work with their suppliers, give them the help they need to decarbonize. They can also change how they buy things, making low-carbon options the priority. Another big one is investing in better data systems to make this whole tracking thing easier for everyone. And maybe most importantly, they can tie their executives' bonuses to actually hitting these Scope 3 targets. Now that's how you get things moving. And look, this isn't just about companies choosing to do the right thing. The policy world is finally starting to catch up. We're seeing new rules, like from the UK's Transition Plan Task Force, that are basically forcing big companies to finally get to grips with this. They have to map out their entire messy value chain and come up with a credible plan. And this is where government and the world of finance become absolutely critical. They're the ones who can really pull the big levers. Regulators can set minimum standards so everyone's playing by the same rules. The government can use its own massive purchasing power to create demand for green products. And investors, they can demand real, believable transition plans from the companies they put their money into. That really forces change from the top down. Which really brings us to the bottom line here. The UK's entire Net Zero 2050 promise, it's facing a massive credibility test. Is this a genuine, workable plan? Or is it just a nice sounding aspiration that looks good on paper but doesn't have the teeth to back it up? You see, the biggest gap we have to close is the one between just disclosing emissions and actually delivering reductions. Look, having frameworks and reports, that's a good first step, but it's not the end goal. Reporting a problem doesn't solve it. You have to match that disclosure with real incentives, smart regulations, and the data to make it all work. It sounds so simple, but it might be the most important takeaway from all of this. Plans aren't action. Setting a target isn't the same as actually reducing emissions. The UK has the plan. Now it's all about the delivery. And when you boil it all down, this is it. The success or failure of the UK's entire net zero ambition hinges on this one issue. Scope 3 isn't some side project or a technical detail for the accountants. It is the central battleground. It's where this fight will be won or lost. And this quote really says it all, doesn't it? Net zero 2050 is still achievable, technically speaking, but the credibility of that promise? It all comes down to whether the UK can get a handle on these messy, hidden emissions that no single company or government department can control on its own. So that's the big question we're left with, isn't it? Will all these things, the new rules, the pressure from investors, the leadership from companies, will it all finally come together to tackle these hidden emissions? Because the answer to that question will decide if Net Zero 2050 is a genuine reality, or if it just stays a nice idea.